and I am in the 7th grade. I've spent the last 4 years of my educational journey at DAA. One fact about me is that I'm a part of U of M's Upper Bound program, Wolverine Pathways. During this presentation, we will go over my statement of self, artifacts, and habit of character reflection. At the end, I will answer any questions that you have. This year in ELA, I excelled at writing summaries using evidence from the text and outside sources to prove my point and or main idea. I was challenged by staying focused during our journaling time because I would jump from one prompt to another without finishing it, and I wouldn't end up writing for the entire time. My ELA artifact is one of the many reasons why I believe when I receive positive feedback, I can make positive changes to my work. In class, we were learning about diseases and epidemics, and in the process of creating my artifact, I did fail on the 2 drafts before the final product, but with the feedback, both peer and from my teacher, I improved and I wrote enough details to get a passing grade or 100%. This year in humanities, I excelled at writing notes for tests. And I struggled on free writing assignments, but even with this fact, I did get a 14 out of 15 on my artifact. This is another example of why when I'm given positive feedback, along with given multiple chances, I can make excellent work. In class, we were discussing ancient civilizations and their mythology. And at the end of the unit, we had to write an epic hero story, and I chose to base my story off of Icarus. I chose this story because I think the moral of Icarus is you can aim high, but don't be arrogant. This year in math, I excelled at doing my missing work. An example of this is when I was away from school for 5 days and I came back and I had all my assignments completed, and I ended up getting A's on majority of them. I struggled on my exit tickets because I would either go too fast and not double check my answers or just do the wrong process in general. That did improve as the year went on, but it still was something that I need to improve on next year. My math artifact is, once again, another example of how I improve when given feedback, which I think is one of the many important skills that you need for high school and for 8th grade. My habit of character strength is perseverance because, once again, when I'm given good feedback, I continue to try and push myself to create even better work that is my best and that is top tier work. An example of this is in math class when I was creating my artifact. I lost the very first copy, but I then later realized that that wasn't my best work, so being able to do the first draft a second time allowed me to improve, so I got a excellent, perfect 30 out of 30. My habit of character growth area is cooperation because I struggle with working with others who don't work at the same pace as me. My goal for 8th grade is to get better at working in groups by slowing down and listening to others' thoughts and their input. During my time at DAA, I have grown by working better with others compared to telling them what to do, which is what I used to do in my old school. And even if it is something that I need to improve on, it is still something that I grew in quite a bit. I know I am ready for the high school transition process because of skills I have acquired at DAA, such as problem solving, critical thinking, organization, and diligent work ethic. Any questions?
Thank you, Peyton. I was really interested in your comment about the challenge of group work and the different levels of students' involvement in that and how that can make one student impatient, perhaps make another student nervous, and everywhere in between. I just wondered if you could give us a tangible example in one of your classes as to where you were most challenged in that regard, and maybe one where you found a success in using the strategy that you mentioned.
An example of when I struggled was when we creating our ELA podcast. I was working in a group of people who I don't necessarily work well with, but after taking time to slow down and making sure that we were all on the same page, we ended up creating an amazing podcast and we all passed. And an example of when that was really easy was when I had to create a slideshow in humanities to teach other about apartheid. And once again, I was working in a group where I wasn't necessarily doing that well, but at the end, we all came together, we each assigned each other parts, making it more organized, and we got a perfect 100.
Thank you very much.
Peyton, I think I have had the joy and honor of teaching you from 3rd grade and seeing you grow. And now that you're in 7th grade, heading to 8th grade, you're about to be a leader in our school. I'm wondering, what's your plan, or what do you think you could use from your experience and your journey to help younger students at DAA?
I think that, for example, next year for the current 6th graders, I could tell them about the questions that the panel asks for the passage presentation, the dress attire, things that they should do. For example, speaking loudly, being confident, those types of things. And I also think that a way that I could help with the students is by when they get to 7th grade, they could organize events like how we organized the talent show and how we were doing, well, we haven't done it yet, but how we were planning on doing a presentation about the LGBTQ community to teach others and things along that line.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, Peyton. Thank you for that presentation. Wow. In thinking of ways that you've grown at DA over the past few years and things that you talked about how you still struggle in and that you're looking forward to working on, what is something, in thinking about high school, what is something that, or a skill or a habit of character or some experience that you think, maybe something you feel nervous about high school, that you'll have to draw on those skills or that experience, or like, what is a way that, how are you looking at high school through the lens of things that you have reflected on during your passage and your growth at DA?
I think that the passage will prepare me for if I ever have to give like a class presentation and classes like literature. It will allow me to build up my speaking skills, and it will allow me to work better in groups using peer review, along with talking with my classmates to see what we can each do better, things along that line.
Okay, I have one more question. Can you also think of any examples, and it's okay if you need think time, can you think of an example of a time where maybe you had an experience at DAA that you felt was a positive experience, or one that you took value from, but that didn't result in, maybe an adult didn't agree and it didn't result in a score that you thought, or in the feedback that you were hoping for? Can you think of any times like that you felt successful but maybe somebody disagreed?
I would think back to when we used to do the character cut. That was a really fun experience, but also my class, I think we only won once, and we all were like, well, we don't think that we agree with that score, but obviously teachers scored us for that for a certain reason. And we went back and we reflected on how we can grow from that and what ways we can improve ourselves based off the feedback that we got.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Peyton, I'm not one of your teachers or administrators, but I had the most direct chance in getting to know you during the after-school STEAM program, and we had a chance to talk after that in terms of the post-assessment as well as the little interview. So I've heard what you had to say about that program. But I just wonder if you could reflect on, this is as much for me and for us as it is for you. How well do you think that integrated into other studies and classes here? And how could it be improved to do more so in that regard?
STEAM, it allowed me to review things that I already knew a little about and learn a lot more about it. For example, when I learned more about the water cycle and the difference between the urban water cycle and the natural water cycle, it allowed me to improve on certain science things, because we had a science class before we started doing passage presentation, practice, and preparing. That it actually helped me when we were learning about, I think it was the amount of rainfall in certain cities and how that affects things like floods and traffic and the water plants cleaning water and how the rivers become toxic.
And the second part of the question, just anything that we could do to tie it even more tightly to the rest of the classes in the science class, et cetera?
No, I think you guys did a wonderful job on it.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Any other questions? No.
All right. Thank you so much, Paige.